digestion and absorption, regulation of digestive function, and integration of neural endocrine signaling pathway and signaling mechanism. Function of the GI tract, that will be ingestion, digestion, absorption, excretion, and movement. This is from the biology class, Bio 102 class, from the AMP class. Organ of the digestive system that have accessory organs and digestive tract organs. For the accessory organs, that will be salivary glands, liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. Salivary glands, liver, gallbladder, pancreas. Digestive tract, that will be oral cavity, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, and larger intestine. What we have to know, the oral cavity, that will be boundaries, that will be lips, cheeks, palate. And the oral cavity is important in process for chewing, that is the mastication, process of chewing, mastication. Mastication, that's mean mechanical digestion. Mechanical digestion. Secretion of saliva. Secretion of saliva for digestion. Secretion of saliva for digestion. That will be amylase, salivary amylase. That will be coating the food with the mucus. Digest the carbohydrates and starch. Digests starch, carbohydrates. No significant absorption. No significant absorption of nutrients occurs in the oral cavity. In the oral cavity. Pharynx. The pharynx is the passageway from the nose and mouth to the esophagus and respiratory tract. Have a uvula, which one it will be? When you eat, the close to the respiratory system, that's why you're not choking. When you're breathing, the close digestive system. It's clear, yeah? To the esophagus. That's why it will be able to make those movements during the swallowing, during the food directed to the, for example, from the pharynx to the esophagus, from the pharynx to the esophagus. Here's the esophagus. Esophagus has an upper esophageal sphincter, which one voluntary, non-voluntary, that will be low esophageal sphincter. Upper esophageal sphincter, low esophageal sphincter. This is the esophagus, this is the stomach, and this is the duodenum. Upper and low esophageal sphincter controls flow. Upper, that will be voluntary, and low esophageal sphincter, involuntary. Are you okay, guys? Everything's clear so far? Hello?
Yes.
Look at here. Upper esophageal sphincter control, voluntary, low, involuntary. Stomach. This is I took from the endocrine and from the anatomy class and from Bio 102 class. That will be stomach. Stomach stores food. What the stomachs do? Stomachs make the stores food, mixes, and mechanically and chemically mix it, digest it. Stomach also secretes digestive juice, such as pepsin, digest the proteins, pepsin, digest the protein, exam question, MCAT exam, DAT exam question, mandatory to know, mandatory. Pepsin, digest proteins. Hydrochloric acid, acidic pH required for pepsin activity, and to kill ingested bacteria, Hydrochloric acid will be produced by parietal cells, Where's the parietal cells located, guys? Here, in front of you. Parietal cells located where?
In the stomach.
In the stomach. Produce what? Hydrochloric acid, and second function that will be activated intrinsic factor. Here. Parietal cells produce hydrochloric acid and intrinsic factor. MCAT exam, DAT exam question, mandatory to know. Absorption of vitamin B12 in intrinsic factor for absorption of vitamin B12. Important in the red blood cells maturation. Go back. Here is the stomach, has a parietal cells. Parietal cells start to produce hydrochloric acid. Why is the hydrochloric acid doesn't dissolve the stomach by yourself? Because yellow one, that will be what? Yellow one will be what? Mucus. Those mucus will be covers parietal cells, protects stomach wall from self-digestion. Guys, it's clear or not? Akiva, it's
Yes,
clear for you?
it's clear.
Very good. That is the probably environment where you are sitting now. In Dominican Republic or in Bahamas.
Yeah.
But while you are in the white shirt, you are not in the okay.
It's one of those fancy white flannel shirts, you know, those you wear at the
Good. Let's continue, guys. Small distraction, it's okay also. That because you cannot concentrate non-stop, you already was concentrated for the exam review. Now it's very difficult to concentrate for the lectures. Even in the joke, for example, we are joking during the class, that is the distraction a little bit to brings to your attention again. Okay, if will be damaging, for example, hydrochloric acid start to produce too much, what they have it, they're going to be damaging mucosal layers of the stomach, which one brings to the erosia. If will be goes to deeper for the mucus layer and goes to the muscular layers, that will be brings to the what? Brings to the what, guys?
Ulcer.
Ulcers. Partially digested food in the stomach. This is the coin, chime, whatever you want. Little absorption take place in the stomach, but if you take the alcohol on empty stomach, immediately you're going to be feeling that. And also, it's not allowed to take some certain medication, such as aspirin, for example, ibuprofen, diclofenac, and etc. All those medications, it's not allowed it. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs on the empty stomach. Why? Could be brings to the erosia, could be brings to the for a longer period of time. If you take the medication on empty stomach, could be brings to the damaging of the mucosal layer and even brings to the ulcers as well. What is the chief cells produce? Chief cells produce in the stomach. Chief cells in the stomach produce pepsinogen, inactive precursor of the pepsin. What they do? From pepsinogen brings to the pepsin. Parietal cells produce hydrochloric acid, intrinsic factor, absorption of vitamin B12, that helps to that. Important for the red blood cells maturation. We already mentioned that. Endocrine cells in the stomach, G cells produce the gastrin. G cells produce the gastrin. Delta cells, G cells, somatostatin, that is the paracrine. enterochromaffin-like cells that will be histamine. That will be histamine. In medical school, you have to know which receptors that will be H2 receptors in the stomach, which one they're going to be prescribed some of the medication. Small intestine. In the small intestine that will be connect the stomach with the larger intestine, its major site of digestion, major site of absorption, has a special that will be simple columnar epithelium with the villi. Villi increase the surface area for better absorption in the small intestine. A small intestine that will be the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Bile here will be produced in the liver, but storage in the gallbladder. In the gallbladder. Storage in the gallbladder. Emptying in the duodenum. Here it will be, for example, how gonna be work when you eat fatty food. This is the esophagus, this is the stomach, this is the duodenum. You ate fatty food, that goes from the esophagus to the stomach, from stomach goes to the duodenum. Duodenum says, hello, fatty food, I cannot digest you. I need for that reason the bile. Enteroendocrine cells in the duodenum start to produce CCK, that will be cholecystokinin. And cholecystokinin here, blue arrow, shows they send the signals to the gallbladder and says, hello, gallbladder, I need your help. I cannot digest the fatty food in the duodenum. And gallbladder says, how can I help you? He says, I need your bile. Gallbladder make the contraction of the gallbladder, release the bile, and this bile goes to the duodenum and make the process for emulsification. What does it mean, process for emulsification? From larger molecule of the fatty food breaks down to the smaller molecule fatty food for better absorption in the small intestine. It's clear?
What type of digestion does the bile help with?
What do you mean? What kind of digestion?
Like fatty digestion?
That is the fatty food digestion. Bile helps to fatty food. That's why the duodenum, when it receives the fatty food, he stimulate enteroendocrine cells, start to produce CCK, and those CCK send the impulses to the bile and to the gallbladder and says, I need the bile to digest the fatty food because I'm not able to digest it. Where come from bile? Could be bile, for example, comes from the liver, produce the liver and goes to the right hepatic, left hepatic, goes to the common hepatic duct, then goes to the common bile duct, this one, which one is opening in duodenum. But beside that, after common hepatic duct, has a cystic duct, which one is the bile will be produced from here and deposit in the gallbladder. If will be remove the gallbladder, they ligate it, blockade it, cutting in the cystic duct. Absorptive cells, goblet cells produce the mucus. Enteroendocrine cells, cholecystokinin, CCK, and secretin. Carbohydrate digestion, they need the pancreatic amylase. Which one from the disaccharide brings to the monosaccharide? And salivary amylase also in oral cavity. Yes, here is the oral cavity that will be salivary amylase. Proteins that will be in the stomach begin the digestion with the pepsin, contribute in the small intestine. That will be trypsin, chymotrypsin, carboxypeptidase. MCAT exam, DET exam question. In your exam question, that will be mandatory to know about the trypsin, chymotrypsin. That will be MCAT exam. DAT exam question about the trypsin, chymotrypsin. Mandatory to know. Slide number 13, that will be lipids. Digestion begins in the small intestine. First step, that will be process for emulsification. I already mentioned that. Transformation in the larger lipid droplets in the smaller lipid droplets. MCAT exam, DAT exam question, your exam question. mandatory to know, be activated by digestive enzyme that will be pancreatic lipase. Pancreatic lipase. Here it shows from the larger molecule to the smaller molecule. Who gonna be helps to that? That will be what, guys? Exam question. Which one? Which one? That will be what? Bile. Do you remember that? Yeah, guys. Okay. Absorption of the lipids. Bile also helps. Bile also helps absorption of the products of lipid digestion, forming some of the smaller molecule, which one brings to the digestion through that will be free fatty acid and glycerol. Absorption of the lipids required. Absorption of lipids is required for absorption of the vitamin, especially lipid-soluble vitamin or fat-soluble vitamin. Which group of vitamin? A, D, E, K. A, D, E, K. Digestion and absorption, nucleic acid. Food also contains RNA and DNA. Pancreas release nucleases into the small intestine. Nucleases digest the RNA and DNA into different components. Small intestine, water. About 9 liters of the water enters in the digestive tract, 8 liters that will be absorbed by the small intestine. What about the larger intestine? Larger intestine, no digestion occurs. No digestion occurs place in the larger intestine. Last portion of the digestive tract. But what happened there? Mostly absorption of the water, one. Second, that will be bacteria produce vitamin K, biotin, vitamin B7 at biotin. And third, will be produce a lot of the mucus. That will be secretion of the mucus. Which one? That will be lubrication of feces. Guys, it's clear? Guys, interesting digestive system. Or you are not familiar with this?
Very interesting. Very
You have to know this material already from the Bio 102. I don't know if you remember or not, but I'm repeating one more time. Accessory digestive organs, that will be pancreas. Pancreas. Exocrine portion produce digestive enzymes, bicarbonate. Liver produce the bile. We already mentioned that. Stores glycogen. Process for gluconeogenesis, MCAT exam question. Gluconeogenesis, MCAT exam, DAT exam question. Usually liver, they make the detoxification. That is your body laboratory. Your body laboratory, which one will be the detoxification? Detoxification of the drugs, alcohols, ammonia. Liver also makes proteins such as albumin, fibrinogen, clotting factor. One more time. Liver makes proteins, albumins, fibrinogen, clotting factor. All those, whatever I'm saying now, all exam questions in your exam and MCAT exam. Gallbladder, that will be only storage for the what? Storage for the bile. Two types of the mechanism, neural and endocrine. Neural control of digestion, that will be largely by the parasympathetic nervous system and the local enteric reflexes. How going to be that? That will be activate parasympathetic nervous system, PSH, parasympathetic PS nervous system, increase motility in the stomach, slow down movement of the food, motility of the stomach, motility, slow down movement from stomach to the small intestine. Also, if you are thinking about the food, for example, Mr. Jonathan Ray, he was hungry. What he's doing, for example, during the class, that, for example, he is want to eat. For example, that even he's thinking about the food, that will be, for example, will be stimulated his parasympathetic nervous system. Mr. Ray is not here?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Where? I don't see you.
I'm here. My camera's on.
Oh, yeah, I see now. I see now. Yeah, and that will be, which one it will be simulated, which system, Mr. Ray? You was eating that 5 minutes ago. That's why I'm asking you.
Because I was eating, you're saying.
Yes, that which system it was involved?
Meaning, what's your question exactly?
What exactly? Yeah, I already mentioned my exact question.
Oh,
Which system?
parasympathetic.
Parasympathetic nervous system. Even, for example, you thought about the food, slightly taste the food, smell the food, and that will be all that will be involved in the process, especially chemoreceptors detect the nutrients and pH and etc. etc. For example, when even you are thinking about the food, start to produce chewing, taste, food activates parasympathetic nervous system, resulting in increases, for example, acidity of the stomach, that will be hydrochloric acid, mucus start to produce, and pepsin in the stomach. High yield exam question, mandatory to know for the MCAT exam question, even maybe not in my exam, but it's in my exam also, but more focus for the MCAT and DET exam. Next one, guys, that will be intestinal phase. Cephalic, that was from the brain, yeah, guys. GI phase, that will be G cells, which one from the stomach, and extended from the antrum to the duodenum. Important aspect of the intestinal phase that will be related, and is feedback, regulation, or inhibition, or something for the food related. Look at here. First phase, that will be cephalic phase. You are thinking about the food, activated medulla oblongata, and parietal cells start to produce, for example, hydrochloric acid. G cells start to produce the gastrin. That will be for vagus, parasympathetic nervous system. Vagus, that is the cranial nerve, number 10. That will be in the brain, cephalic phase. In the stomach, when food actually already came from the esophagus to the stomach will be make different process. That will be 60% of the gastric phase that will be initiated by the gastric events. That will be all those hydrochloric acid, gastrin, and etc. start to make the, for example, all those digestion for the food. You don't need to memorize the formula for the gastrin, formula for the CCK, and for the secretin. Absolutely not necessary. What the gastrin do? Gastrin produce from the stomach G cells, release by stomach peptides, amino acids, alcohol, caffeine, parasympathetic innervation that will be take place under, for example, the gastrin inhibited by highly acidity pH. Function increases gastric stomach secretion. This one, it will be from the how going to be produced. This one, it will be increasing function, primarily by hydrochloric acid that will be increased acidity and increase histamine release and increase motility and relaxation of the sphincters for the area from the small intestine to the large intestine. That will be ileocecal sphincter and stimulate the gross gastric mucosa. What about the endocrine control of digestion? That will be histamine. Histamine produced by the enterochromophile-like cells in the stomach, released by the stimulating by the gastrin. Action increase the hydrochloric acid secretion from the parietal cells. That is the major factor for the hydrochloric secretion. Why we have to know about the H receptors, histamine receptors? Histamine receptors is very important, especially if you make the treatment for the with medication. I will show you in a minute. How it works in the receptor level, that will be acetylcholine, that will be neural input for endocrine cells, that will be here, and start to release for the activate the parietal cells. Parietal cells will be released hydrochloric acid and secretion. And G cells, which one is circulating in the bloodstream, that will be has an input for the endocrine cells, enterochromophile-like cells. Here will be, for example, if will be a low esophageal sphincter, guys, you remember this, yeah? Low esophageal sphincter, that will be involuntary. If will be not properly closing, too much production hydrochloric acid, could be regurgitation. Here is the regurgitation, backflow from the stomach to the esophagus. That will be gastroesophageal reflux diseases. With activation hydrochloric acid, too much production hydrochloric acid, we have to prescribe some of the medication. You remember we spoke about the H2 receptors, histamine blocker, that will be Tagamet, Zantac, Pepcid, all those how going to be working, and the pump inhibitors, proton potassium ATPase pump, that will be, for example, Nexium, and the other medication, which one going to be able to decreases the acidity in the stomach. Guys, is clear or not? Guys, hello? It will be, it's not clear. Guys, so far it's clear from the slide. Yeah, that's clear. You have to go to again for the material to the absorb the material. But the main point, you have to understand the concept. If you turn it on or turn it off, the vagus nerve, that will be all those cascade will be that will be circulated in the gastrin or not in the bloodstream. That will be exactly what you're going to be blocking. H2 receptor, give the medication with the H2 receptor, that will be blocking activation of the hydrochloric acid. That's why acidity will be decreased. If will be decreased the acidity, not will be able to bring to the erosion of the stomach or duodenum or ulcers in the stomach. Guys, it's clear? Hello? Why not talking to me? Guys, are you busy? There. Okay, let's finish the lectures if you're not listening.
It's clear, Professor. Yes.
Okay, endocrine control, that will be somatostatin. And one more thing, guys. Next week, when you have an exam, some of the student has an extra time. They're going to become your exam is 10:30, yes? Hello? Your exam at 10:30.
Correct.
Some student who has an extra time, I have that student, they shows up 10 o'clock. We're going to be exam, it will be take place in the room 333 in the third floor. 333, third floor.
How much time do we have, Professor? 1 hour?
1 hour regular for the students. And after that, after 1 hour, we have a lecture. We have a 1 hour lecture. Otherwise, we will not able to make the review for the exam 2 and for the final exam. We have to go forward. It's clear? Okay, let's finish. And somatostatin produced by the G cells in the stomach, secretion that will be stimulated by activity of the sympathetic nervous system, not parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system, because the activation sympathetic, but inhibition by parasympathetic nervous system. Action that will be histamine secretion and release the acidity. That's why it will be decreased hydrochloric acid production. For secretin, which one produced in the small intestine? Secretin, SS, small intestine, S, small intestine. That will be duodenum. Function stimulated by carbonate secretion from the pancreas, inhibit gastric secretion. If will be inhibit gastric secretion, that will be decrease the level of the hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid. You know hydrochloric acid activities. And that will be, for example, decrease the hydrochloric acid production, decrease the motility, and increase bile production. CCK, guys, is clear about CCK or not? Or I have to repeat again? Guys, It says, see slide number 10. We spoke about that. CCK produce enteroendocrine cells, stimulate fatty food in the duodenum, gallbladder contraction, stimulate release of the pancreatic enzymes, decrease the gastric motility and secretion, for example, and secretion that will be increased somatostatin release. High yield exam question and your MCAT exam question. Gastrin has an inhibitory peptide, GIP, that will be enteroendocrine cells in the small intestine, mucus crypts of Libercure. That's a German professor explained that, and has its following action: stimulates insulin releasing, stimulates lipogenesis from the adipose tissue, stimulate glucose skeletal muscles, but inhibits secretion and motility. VIP, not very important person. That is the vasoactive intentional peptide. That will be not VIP, not VIP in the, for example, in the GFK, yeah, in the lounge. That this is the vasoactive intentional peptide, secreted endocrine cells in the also in the same crypts, and stimulate chyme entering in the small intestine. Also, that will be buffering for secretion and inhibit gastric secretion. Control gastric acid secretion. That will be how hydrochloric, how does the parietal cell secrete the hydrochloric acid? Hydrochloric acid here, hydrochloric acid, how going to be produced? Parietal cell hydrochloric acid in the stomach, histamine, that will be histamine activation, somatostatin, for example, delta cells, that will be inhibition, G cells, that will be activation for the secretin, G cells, that will be gastrin in the stomach. Integration and of neural and endocrine function, that will be for the central effects. Central nervous system, if you think about the food, about the taste, smell of food, chewing the food, you're going to be activate parasympathetic nervous system. That will take place by activation of the acetylcholine. Acetylcholine act directly, look at here, acetylcholine, here's the acetylcholine, act directly into parietal cells, increase the acidity, and increase gastric secretion and motility. Sympathetic nervous system, you see activation plus PS. That will be inhibition, opposite. That will be decrease the gastric secretion. Here it was acetylcholine, stimulated by parasympathetic, and acetylcholine, which one is the sympathetic nervous system? That will be inhibition. What is the local reflexes? Local reflexes, that is the mechana receptors in the wall of the GI tract, detect movement of food into an organ. Examples. In the stomach destination, caused activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, increasing gastric secretion and acid release. Chemoreceptor detect nutrients and pH. Presence of amino acids, alcohol, caffeine in the stomach increase gastric release. That's why if you come to the exam, do not take the caffeine, do not take the coffee on the empty stomach, because that will be increase the acidity and start to bothering you. Signaling mechanisms. Histamine receptor, that will be coupling GS, increase the cyclic AMP production, that is from the exam 1. Gastrin, that will be G0, and somatostatin GI, that will be inhibitory. GS, S up, stimulatory, I inhibitory. What is the CCK? CCK receptors coupling, that will be G0, increase calcium, causes somatostatin release. Secretin receptor couple of the GS, increase the cyclic AMP, caused by increased secretion of the bicarbonate from the pancreas. Food, G cells, delta cells, parietal cells, Chief cells, all we million times already mentioned, G cells, gastrin, delta cells, somatostatin, parietal cells that will be released the hydrochloric acid, which one also histamine activities, and pepsin, pepsinogen, which one is the chief cells produce pepsinogen, pepsin, which one will be breaking down of what, guys? Breaking down of what? Pepsin, breaking down of what? Protein. That was shows, for example, how going to be integrating gastric secretion. This is pretty similar. Here it will be, for example, input, and this is the Q. This is the all exam questions. And here, for example, opposite, that will be inhibitory. What's happened in duodenum? It will be secreting response for the activity. For example, you ate the food and the bile will be produced and brings to the where? To the duodenum. Secretin, it will be, for example, secreted for the small intestine. Decrease the hydrochloric acid motility, and from the stomach goes to the duodenum. What that is the what you didn't eat, nothing in the stomach. What about it will be in the stomach? Some of the fatty food, for example, look at here, the yellow dot, that will be food in the stomach. If you go back to the slide, that really doesn't say any food in the stomach. And this one is the food, and all those mechanisms with the CCK will be involved, and bile start to make the activation of the gallbladder. Gallbladder contraction, bile comes from the cystic duct, from the common bile duct to the duodenum, and break down the fatty food. That's it. It's clear, guys. Guys, lectures 8. Everything's clear so far.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Guys, have a good Shabbos. If you don't have any